Good morning, good afternoon in whatever part of the world you may be. And on behalf of TNS, I would like to welcome you to our panel discussion today where we are going to discuss critical PCI updates. My name is Mark Collins. I'm responsible for TNS payments market activities across all of Europe. And I would like to introduce you to the panel that we have assembled for today. First up, we have Jeremy King. Jeremy is the regional head for Europe of the PCI Standards Council. Second, we have Michael Aminzade, who is our Vice President of Consulting Advisory Services at Viking Cloud. And Viking Cloud may be a reasonably new name to many of you, but Michael will give you some background and you will understand the component parts of that in due course. Finally, we have Umer Ayub, who is TNS's Chief Risk Officer. And I'm hoping between the three of these eminently qualified PCI people that we will learn a little bit about the background to PCI, understand where the standards are going and how they are expected to benefit business and benefit the consumer. So I will kick off the session. And first up, I would like to ask Jeremy to respond and just give us a brief background on the evolution of the PCI Security Standards Council, the standards covering the industry themselves, and the aims that they originally set out to achieve and whether they have been achieved or not. Jeremy.
No, thank you, Mark, and hello, everybody. That's a really good question. So the council was formed back in 2006 when all of the card brands came together and decided we would have a united standard for payment security. And that was the start of the PCI DSS. And back then, the world was simpler, payments were simpler. It was either face-to-face or e-com. We had the four-party model, so it was a very simple transaction process. And our big challenge and a big problem was trying to stop organizations and companies storing vast amounts of cardholder data. The criminals were breaking in and stealing all this stored data. So we did that very effectively. But as we've seen through time and continue to see, payments are continuing to evolve. They're evolving at an ever-increasing rate. And so our standards have had to change as well. And as a standards body, we're always playing catch-up, which is always a challenge. But with the introduction of smartphone and mobile payments, with the introduction of the tablet, with more and more organizations using third parties in the payment space, then the whole significantly more complicated. Add into that the criminals have changed as well. We've gone from what the Americans like to call script kiddies to now where we are dealing with organized criminal gangs that share information globally. So it's a very, very complicated picture. And so our standards and our processes and everybody's defenses have to be up to scratch for complicated and very clever attacks. And so that is where we've come from. That is where we're going. We're seeing with the fintech companies coming in, this changing even quicker now. And so with DSS4, we're moving forward to really hopefully cover these changes in the payment space.
Thanks, Jeremy. Michael, if you can build on that, please, and just give us a little bit of background to Viking Cloud itself and the component parts within it. And then just give us a view about what your customers have to say about the standards and the benefits that they deliver.
Yeah, certainly. It's a pleasure to be here today. So Viking Cloud, we've had a busy 18 months. We have brought together multiple companies. We've brought together ControlScan, NewArcs, Viking Cloud, Sysnet, and Secure Trust. People may know Secure Trust as TrustWave. We are now the largest QSA in the world. And we provide services to over 5 million merchants. And we also work with a lot of the top acquirers around the world. So we have got the consulting part of the business, which is the part that I'm responsible for. We've also got managed security services and our vulnerability management and penetration testing capabilities, as well as supporting the acquirer and the level 3 and 4 merchants. from a business perspective. I think to add on to what Jeremy was saying, having been in the industry, since kind of before PCI actually came into existence as we know it now, we actually have members of the team that were actually working with the card brands, helping them set up their individual compliance programs, which formed the basis and came together to be the base for the PCI standard as we know it now, even though it has evolved since then. So the level of experience that we've got, we see that there's been a lot of change in the industry. There's been a lot of new technologies, and there's continuing new technologies that organizations are going to have to adopt in the payment space. Mobile, then there's also crypto and other forms of payments that are going to be in the future of payment transactions in some way, shape or form. And I think one of the things that I would say is that the standards, PCI SSE does a fantastic job in maintaining them and also enhancing them and rolling out new standards, not only just for PCI DSS, but also covering the other areas of the payment landscape, whether it is SSF for payment applications, or PIN environments, or card production environments as well, just for some of them to speak of. So we've seen a lot of involvement over the years, and I think that will continue to happen. I think PCI 4.0 we're all anticipating the release of that, but from being involved and providing feedback on the version of the standard, it is definitely moving forward and looking to be able to support the future of the payment landscape as things develop. I think the one piece I'll just add is that compliance is a minimum requirement, and I think we still do see lots of organizations that sometimes see it as the bar of what they should be doing versus the minimum requirement in order to be able to working with that data.
Thanks, Michael. And Umer, if I can ask you briefly just to give a little bit of background on TNS as a service provider and how we were early adopters and how we have maintained compliance.
Thanks, Mark. So those of you who know, I've been with the business nearly 20 years, and when PCI DSS first made an appearance sometime in 2006, I remember looking at that document, and it was quite a daunting piece of literature. And the only time I'd had a similar experience was when I sat my accountancy finals, and that wasn't all that pleasant either, but I did pass. So looking at what we had an extensive infrastructure spanning multiple countries, offering a variety of payment-related products. It was not going to be possible for us to find just one date annually and get all of our environments certified. So we decided to take a structured and a collaborative approach to compliance. We put our products and services in categories and decided to get the underlying infrastructure certified in quarters 1, 2, and 3. Now, that delivered another benefit that we hadn't anticipated at the time, which was we were working with our QSAs almost throughout the course of the year. And that had an advantage that the QSAs got a very good understanding of our business. We got the opportunity to learn from our QSAs and also to apply anything that we had learned in, say, Q1 to the subsequent quarters 2 and 3. And not only that, to the subsequent years. So that is what actually helped us put together a structured approach to compliance. I also mentioned collaborative. And this approach will have been fantastic if nothing ever changed. But the reality is, in business, things do change. Standards can change. As we're talking about PCI 4.0, we're also talking about new technologies that are being offered. So products change, underlying infrastructure changes. And to ensure that we remain compliant, we took a collaborative approach whereby we worked closely with our internal products team, internal operations, security, HR, legal teams to get a better understanding of what was changing, what impact that would have on our compliance posture. And also, it gave us an opportunity to reach out to the likes of PCI DSS if we wanted to get a better interpretation of a particular requirement in the standards, to the card schemes who enforce these standards, and even to our customers who use our products and services. So, Mark, from your perspective, you've been with the business quite some time, and you've been working with our customers. From your perspective, how do customers perceive our PCI certification, the fact that we have remained compliant for the last 15 to 16 years?
I think first up, Umer, positively is the word. And we all know now that PCI is an embedded part of the payment ecosystem, and everybody understands what it is. I think there is a mixture across the industry of respect and some pain associated with the standard, as you would expect with any standard. But I think when you look at the mature players in the marketplace, they don't just see the need to be compliant, they also see the value in it in terms of protecting the downstream consumer and his data, as well as themselves. So from a sales point of view, I think it's critical. I think it's a very significant message that we can give to customers to say that not alone are we compliant, but we have been for many, many years and work hard to maintain and indeed exceed it. But I think it's an essential part of doing business. And for those that are newer to the market, who perhaps are somewhat frustrated by the rigid controls within PCI, I think in the fullness of time, we see the benefits. And I think we've played a part in selling those benefits to the market and getting people educated on the benefits. Moving on, if I may, to a more general discussion, and I'll start with you, Jeremy, if I may. There is an industry comment or cliche that sound security delivers PCI compliance. How true is that statement in your view?
No, I think it's very true. I do think that perhaps to turn that completely around, one of the common mistakes I think some organizations make is that they think they have to do PCI DSS in isolation, whereas organizations should always focus on security. They should look at their organization, what they're involved with, how they're using data, how they're receiving customers' data, how they're involved in the payment space, and then focus on security. Focus on tackling all of their security needs. And that way, as they go through it, they will definitely tick all of the DSS requirements. And again, the other thing that people sometimes think, and another common error, is people think data security is an IT project. It absolutely is not an IT project. IT will play a major role in it, but data security is everybody's responsibility. Right from the very top of your organization down to the lowest shop floor worker, everybody has a role to play in protecting your organization's data. So really it's around people, process, and technology, getting everybody to understand their role, getting everybody trained, getting the processes in place, because certainly with this last 2 years of pandemic, we saw what happens when suddenly you have to move all your workers to work from home. These are big changes that can come across you very quickly. So having the procedures in place, testing those procedures annually means that you're going to be ready for the unexpected. And criminals can attack you at any time unexpectedly. So it really is. It's focusing on security at all levels and getting it right. And that way, you'll help protect your customers' data.
Thanks, Jeremy. Michael, would you like to build on that?
Yes, certainly. I think one of the pieces that we see working with, large volume of organizations is that, standards do really help organizations with their frameworks. But, PCI DSS is just one standard, which covers, certain data elements, the payment data elements across their organization. However, organizations really need to look at the standards and the controls that are within those standards as good processes for security. Those same controls can then be applied to other data elements because an attacker if they're trying to break into an organization, they may be trying to get certain data types out of an organization, but the first thing they're trying to do is break into the systems in order to get a foothold inside an organization. So, we do see that some organizations out there do not take that approach to compliance and a security first approach. They will still be running projects or their compliance cycle as an IT project. Which causes them potentially to have vulnerabilities inside their infrastructure at a certain points in time throughout the year, because they're focusing on other business initiatives. But the cyber criminals, they don't sleep. They're always waiting. They've got automated processes that are constantly testing your environments, and you need to be running a continuous compliance program in order to make sure that you are secure and that you are protecting the data that you are custodians of.
Thanks, Michael. Umer, I know how close you work with our security team. Can you give us your view on that, whether the focus on security needs to be much broader than just on IT?
So I would say, Mark, first of all, it all depends on the size of the organization, the maturity of their security controls infrastructure. Those companies that have already got a mature security controls infrastructure, for them, PCI is a byproduct. I'm not going to deny that. But there are companies that are still starting out in our industry, and they can use PCI as a good guide to nudge them along that path to mature security controls infrastructure. So it all depends. And we did touch upon PCI 4.0, and we are asked questions about what PCI 4.0 looks like. Of course, it's not out at the moment, but the drafts that we have seen, what we can see is that it will help further those organizations that have got a mature security controls posture, and it will also help those organizations that are just starting out with their security program and ensure that they are also able to achieve PCI compliance, whereby previously they probably couldn't or they were restricted to.
Thanks, Umer. And we talked a lot about the evolution of the payment industry, the emergence of new technologies and new players, and we've also heard reference of 4.0. Jeremy, can you give us a little bit of color on that, around release dates and other expectations, and what exactly 4.0 is expected to achieve?
No, absolutely, Mark. This is the big one for us. So PCI DSS hasn't been updated fully for a number of years. And one of the things I said right at the start was about how the payment space has changed. And certainly that is in how the data transfers from the merchant to the acquirer. It used to be a very simple process, and now not only are there multiple parties involved, but now more often the data is going into the cloud. It's going not only into one location, it can spin around many, many different cloud locations on its journey from the merchant to the acquirer. And what we found was that the standards was beginning to become a poor fit. It was beginning to be a struggle for some organizations to be able to meet the requirements that they were written. So we undertook a major review. We undertook a change to how we write the standards. And certainly as we launched DSS version 4 with the customized approach, this is going to give some organizations more flexibility in how they approach PCI DSS. Absolutely, it's not going to change the security. Absolutely, we're not reducing the level of the bar, but it is going to give people flexibility so that it can meet how they are using payment data, how the transactions are going through in the modern world, so that the standard is going to be relevant, it's going to be appropriate, and also, importantly, it's going to be global. Our standards are global. We only have one version of each standard, so it's got to be able to work around the world. So in terms of what's happening, we've gone through a significant development process, which included several requests for comment periods, and we received a lot of comments. We received some really, really helpful input from our community. And a lot of those comments led to improvements in the guidance, changes to the standard, and really did make a difference. So if you fed information back, thank you, it really did help. They've all been brought into the new standard, and we're ready to release that at the end of March. So the new version will be publicly released at the end of March, and then it'll be ready for you to start reading through it and understanding what's happening. Now, in terms of when it becomes active, it becomes active as soon as it's released, but version 3.2.1 doesn't retire until January 24. So you've got 18 months plus of time to really get to know the standard, understand what that means for your organization, work with your assessors to know what are the gaps, what you need to put right, what we need to fix, and how it's going to impact your organization. We'll be providing lots of training opportunities. We'll be providing lots more guidance documents. Certainly through our community meetings and other meetings, we'll be giving out lots of help and advice. And again, we'll also be training your assessors so that they can also give you the best advice. So it is a big change. It's an important change, but a necessary change. And we think this is really taking our standard forward. And we're looking forward to having it out there and seeing people being able to use it for the first time.
Thanks, Jeremy. I'm sure people will take comfort from the duration, albeit I know it's never long enough, but 18 months does seem like a reasonable time frame. For the last 5 or 6 minutes together, guys, I'd like us to focus on industry readiness. Michael, if I could start with you and your experience, what do you think about the readiness and preparedness of the customer base in terms of maintaining or indeed achieving for the first time, particularly under this the emerging new standard?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Excuse me. I think one of the challenges that we have seen from migrating across standards previously is that organizations use the 18-month period potentially as a window to push off proactively addressing the controls and actually getting ready for the controls. Not all of the industry, but there was definitely a certain part of the industry and of the client base that looked at that and said, well, I've got this 18-month period. I'll tell you what, I'll do some planning this financial cycle, and then I'll look to do the implementation in the next financial cycle. What we found that did was that caused problems for those organizations, because as you said, Mark, earlier on, 18 months it's a fair window, but it's not a huge long window for organizations, especially if they've got large complex environments spanning multiple different technologies, different global and international footprints. So what I would say is that I think the community as a whole, from how we have migrated and the lessons we've learned from previous standards, I'm expecting the community and the industry to take a more proactive approach to migrating to this standard, especially off of the amount of involvement that the community has had providing comments back to the PCI DSS. It's really been a very good, good process with development of this standard and actually involving, the community and the industry, throughout that journey. So, the majority of the industry should be fully aware that it is coming. And actually, what we're seeing from our client base is organizations are, already reaching out to us and actually wanting to start to consult on how is this version, going to affect their compliance cycles. And so we're definitely seeing that there's much more positivity into taking a proactive approach, which is great to see. Obviously, we can't start having some of those conversations until the standard is actually published at the end of this quarter. But I think that the industry as a whole is more prepared for this migration of this standard than it has been for previous versions. So
plan early and execute immediately. Umer, Do you want to build on that, and can you talk a little bit about the TNS approach to ensure timely compliance?
Yes, Mark, building on what I've said already, when we first heard about PCI 4.0, we were very keen to see the initial versions of the standard, and as a participating organization, those versions were made available for feedback and for comment. So we have very much been involved in the process. We started this quite a few months ago. We reviewed the draft versions that were made available. We assessed the impact on our business. We assessed the impact on any future products that we might be working on. And then we provided feedback to PCI SSC, sometimes directly and sometimes through our QSAs. So we've been working on it for quite some time, and we remain confident that the new version of the standard is going to give larger organizations with more mature security controls infrastructures an opportunity to focus on those areas that the bad guys do target. And it will also give smaller businesses that are just starting out to focus on areas that can help them get to that level of maturity that is necessary in our industry.
Thanks, Umer, and thanks to everybody. I am conscious of time, and we are approaching the 30 minutes. So first up, I would like to thank the panel for their views. It's much appreciated, but particular thanks to Jeremy and to Michael, who've given their time to join us today. It's very much appreciated. I know that PCI is never the exciting part of payments, and I'm sure Jeremy will forgive me for saying that. But equally, I think it's a critical bedrock that we know we all have to invest time in. And I think it's there is a greater understanding in the industry that it is a critical part of what we do. Data protection and protecting the consumer information for various reasons is so important to all of us. So on behalf of TNS, thank you all for attending. Please feel free to contact any of us if you have any query, or use the mechanisms that are available to you through this conference. Again, thank you for taking the time to attend. It's very much appreciated. All the best to you all.